Hi guys, I'm Greg.
I'm John.
So we're going to do a little spoiler-filled talk about the new Logan movie.
Yep.
Now, we'll be the first channel ever to have done a spoiler review on this movie. There's no one else who's put theirs up way before ours.
Nope.
So we're the first ones to do
ahead
this.
of the curve, guys.
Let's just hop into this right away, okay? This opening scene of the movie where you see Logan just laying down and he's in the car, right? The back of the limo.
Yeah, he's in the trunk.
And he just looks battered and you know what's great about the makeup here? And we saw this with Andrew from the Movie Source channel.
Yeah.
And what's great about the makeup here, and Tony pointed this out too, is that he looked really old in a natural way. Like, you're like, man, Hugh Jackman's really aged.
Yeah, right?
Like, we're like, okay, we know they added gray hair and shit.
Yeah.
But in terms of, like, the wrinkles and all the facials, everything with his face, you're just like, he looks, Hugh Jackman really has aged. He really has, this is time for him to hang up the cape, But then when you, like, see interviews and shit, you're like, oh, wait, he still looks, like, incredible for his age.
Yeah. Like, and then that makes you go, like, wow, it's really good, A, old age makeup, and B, they also make him look, like, really battered, too.
Yeah.
So he's got all these scars and nicks and stuff.
I heard that he was extremely tired throughout this whole shoot.
Really?
And he said it, like, aided in his performance. That it made it, and I'm like, well, yeah, Logan's
so hard.
This is a film of Logan deteriorating,
I almost feel like you have to play this role tired because
Totally.
like, this is an exhausted human being.
And it was so fascinating how because I was wondering, like, how are they going to do the title sequence? Ever since, like, BVS, I've paid more attention to when they do, like, a good title sequence.
Yeah.
So when he, like, falls onto the floor and then he's just laying there and he's, like, fucked up. And it just says Logan in the corner.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is not. It already
That's
is.
Logan.
It greatly already establishes this is a different kind of movie. This isn't a Wolverine film. I'm the Wolverine, because and it was cool because when I look back at James Mangold's The Wolverine, that was about him embracing, I'm the Wolverine.
Yeah.
Here it's like, no, this is just old man Logan right here.
Yeah, this dude has lived way too much life.
Yeah, this is just a dude named Logan at this point.
Yeah.
And then they hop into, because these like Hispanic dudes, these gangsters or whatever, are trying to like jack the tires or something off the car, trying to steal parts off this limo. And when they get into the fight, like, Logan's getting fucked up at first. He should be able to heal from drinking pretty fast, but we see that he's not. He's getting his ass kicked. But when he starts, like, what this movie goes back to every time is one of Logan's greatest strengths is his rage.
Yeah.
When he gets rageful, he's unstoppable. Even when he's like battered, he can keep moving if he's in a fit of rage, And like, we all heard, like, this movie's going to be violent.
Yeah.
This is going to be brutal.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're all truly ready for how it's going to look until we see that first scene when he's, like, slashing up their faces and flesh is getting torn apart on their face.
Yeah.
Or cutting off body parts, and it's more than just, like, now there's blood when he stabs them. It's
the violence has a different attitude now. Like, it is it wants you to feel the toll of each one of those swipes. Like, an arm is coming off with this, and there's blood everywhere.
Or, like, when they get stabbed in the back of the head and it comes out their eye.
Yeah, like, they did up the sort of exploitation-y value of the violence,
totally.
and it's very stark in that way.
It's disturbing as fuck, actually,
Yeah.
And I like the transitions and how it's kind of the story's unraveling, and because it's not like, it's like, well, they established it's like 2029 when this movie takes place, so it's not like way out into the future, but they're establishing a world where mutants are a thing of the past now.
Yeah.
They've kind of died out. And I like the sequence that you get where it looks like Logan's buying drugs for himself. Yeah. And then one of the villains, Pierce, shows up and hops in his limo. And I like any movies that like hint at big history. John Wick does that so well. And when he's like when he's like impressed to see like the Wolverine, and when Pierce hops in the limo and he's like, you're a junkie now.
Yeah.
And at first, I'll admit, like, when there's like a lot of F-bombs being thrown around in that scene, I was thinking, like, are they kind of forcing this R rating in here? Like, are they taking too much advantage of it? It was the only sequence where I felt like they're kind of shoving like their F words in here.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, we've spent like so many other movies with Logan where he's not dropping F-bombs, and now he's dropping F-bombs and stuff, so...
Yeah, that's something about this movie, is there are certain things like that took me a few minutes to get used to, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it took me some time to get used to the movie's pitch, because it's different from the other X-Men movies.
Yeah.
In the way that it handles that. And that's the more comic booky stuff, you know, to me. Especially kind of early on, is, you know... When you think of it through the lens of, like, it is still borrowing from a comic, like, some of that dialogue starts to feel a little more natural for the style.
Totally. And plus, it's Logan's a different person by that time. He's much more worn out, less patient and everything. Like, all those qualities of Logan are just now amplified up.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And so it makes sense that he would have much more vulgarity when he's actually speaking this time. And as that scene progresses, I was like, oh, this Pierce guy's not a bad villain, actually. No. I like the way how he's handled. The way the actor did it was so well done. Because that was a role that could have easily been, like, cheesy and trying to chew up the scene.
Yeah.
But
could have been, like, a Jai Courtney thing.
Yeah. But it wasn't.
No offense to Jai Courtney, like, but...
Yeah, it really wasn't. And
that guy who played him, like, really seemed like he was having fun with it too. And they took time, like, the first time you meet him, like, they just have a full blown conversation.
Yeah.
And, like, it really introduces you to your opposition that way. And it's like the way they handle that. Like, that's one of the nicest things about this movie is you get all these, like, just as compelling character interactions, you know, between cool action scenes.
Well, that's part of this. That's the greatest strength of this movie is the character interactions. Yeah. This is a very character-driven film.
Yeah.
And when Logan goes back, they're hiding out at the border in Mexico or something. Mm-hmm. And when Logan goes back to Mexico, and then you know, we meet Caliban, played by Stephen Merchant. And at first, I was like, the Stephen Merchant just kind of reminded me of like he's filling the shoes of what Vision was in like Age of Ultron, not Age of Ultron, Civil War, more like. Yeah. You know how he's like, oh, he's really wise, British speaking. You know, he's the
kind
caretaker.
Of whimsical. And,
he's kind of whimsical and stuff. And I like the interaction. I really like Stephen Merchant's performance in here because there's a whole body language role he's doing here. He's not just funny man Stephen Merchant stepping in being a weirdo. Like, he does it with such a naturalistic quality, and he's rather real and sincere in his delivery. And we'll get more into Caliban in a second. But the first, like, heartbreaking moment, when it started, like, to tweak my heart up, was when you see Professor X. Yeah. And he's, like, going batshit. He's going crazy. He's, like, lost his mind.
He's just talking this, like, stream of consciousness and jumping back and forth between these disjointed ideas. And you're like, wow, Professor X is really, like... He's losing his mind.
Yeah, it's like a form of dementia, some type of like degenerating like brain disease that he's having.
And it's sad.
It's heartbreaking because the whole strength of this man in a wheelchair was his mind. You know,
like it takes time to revel in and show you like even these people with these heightened abilities have weaknesses, and that life is still fragile because of it, and it's it hits you deep.
Yeah, and I like the way how it was playing out because there's interesting lines of dialogue there when like Professor X he calls Logan a disappointment, and I'm like, that is not how Professor X talks to Logan. Yeah. Oh my god, like it's heartbreaking for that because Logan is clearly trying to do the right thing, and then Professor X even says something to him where he's like, "You're just waiting for me to die," and in that moment. Like the way it's captured, because you don't exactly know why Logan is keeping him in here and why he's injecting him and shit. Yeah. So you're kind of wondering, like, is Logan just sort of feel like you're just this thing, this chore? I'm just waiting for you to die because I'll feel guilty if I just let you die.
So I just kind of have to.
Yeah, but as the film unfolds, you see that Logan has become the caretaker of Professor X when it's usually the other way around, where Professor X is the leader, the guide. Yeah. But Logan is taking care of like the one good thing in his life left, is Professor X, and I love their interaction because now they're both kind of mean and nasty to each other. They both have attitude when they speak to each other and give each other crap, as opposed to Logan just being the tough one. And Professor X gets that like that edge in there. You know. We thought we got that with McAvoy kind of being a dick to Professor X, to Logan in Days of Future Past. Yeah. But here it's like, nah, it's like Professor X has grown to really loathe and resent him now because he feels trapped. And so that was like the first heartbreaking sequence for me. which segued eventually into the seizure sequence.
Oh boy.
And that first seizure sequence, like I wasn't exactly sure what was going on.
Yeah.
But the way like the seizure sequences are captured in here are so intense, and you see in that moment that, oh, this is why he's giving him pills and injecting him and stuff, because when this guy starts, he's sick, so when he has these seizures, he could kill someone,
Yeah, well, that's the cool thing about the way a lot of these things unfold is you kind of find out piece by piece. So yeah, at first you're like, geez, Logan, like this is kind of messed up, and then you see the repercussions and you're like, I get it. Like,
yeah.
And that sequence is so jarring, and it's beautifully shot, and the soundscape and like everything, like it really does make you feel like you're having some kind of the most shrill kind of makes you feel what I imagine a seizure might be.
Because when they cut around to like Caliban and Logan or even Professor X, like the way that the camera's just shaking and stuff.
Yeah,
I've never seen a seizure sequence just shot like that, because it's shaking and the sequence is going on for a few minutes. It's not like, oh, it's just a quick little cool shot they're throwing in here. It's a full-blown sequence that they're doing.
It's jarring and incessant, and you don't exactly know when it's going to end, so that makes it all the more like, please God, get to him.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it makes you uncomfortable, and there's some stuff that really pulled some of those emotions out of me.
Yeah, for sure.
Really engaged me, and because we were talking in the earlier review about like being really pulled in and sort of immersed, and like that stuff helped all the more.
Absolutely. And, as the film keeps going, there's the funeral sequence where Logan's, he's driving for someone. But there's, like, few touches throughout, like, just seeing his lifestyle that I really do like. Because in that moment, he tells that woman, I think her name's Gabriella, tells her to fuck off. And she's, like, pleading for help. And it is kind of like, it's kind of douchey, Logan. Come on, this is a woman begging for your help. And... but he's just calling him the Wolverine. He's like, no, leave me alone.
He's not going to attach himself to nobody.
Yeah.
Giving up on that life.
But later on, when they have the limo driving sequence where, like, the girl flashes him and then he smiles about it, it's like, hey, it's the first time Logan's smiling about something. I'm like, it makes sense that Logan would... Because the way he smiled about it was just like, fuck yeah. I haven't seen some titties in a while.
Yeah. And like I thought that was cool. They did take the time, because each time we pop into his limo, something different is happening. Like a different kind of scene is taking place, and like that is the cool thing. Is like you really get to kind of spend time with every part of Logan's day.
Because Logan's just human in this movie.
Yeah.
He's not, like, even in, like, the other films he's in, he's just a wanderer, a cage fighter, or he just, I don't know, he does, like, the Wolverine starts off where he's hiding out in the woods or some shit. And here, he's just a guy trying to get by.
Yeah, he's just a provider.
He's like, guys, taking care of this old man who's like his dad, and he has his limo business where he's driving, and he's just trying to get a boat so he can, like, finally just vacation for a change,
Yeah, just get out and get away from everything.
Yeah, and get Professor X on this boat with him so they can get away from people in case he has a seizure, Like, he has very specific goals, and he's just struggling to make ends meet. Like, you're watching Logan in financial crisis. It's so relatable, because so many of us go through financial struggles.
No wonder you're tired. It's like you're doing, you gotta do this. Like, this is the one you're taking care of, like you said, of the one good thing in your life, but also, like, you can't have a life in order to do that.
Because it's the first movie in the X-Men universe that takes time to go, like, how is he really going to make a living? How is he going to make ends meet?
How are they going to get by?
So
it's going to work out.
It's very relatable. And then the whole sequence with, when he meets Gabriella and Laura at the hotel, and he's getting pulled into what will become the main plot point.
Yeah.
It was a great, it was very well structured. It was a great driving point, because he's thinking, if I could just make this money, I could finally get my goal, and everything will be good. So it's great motivation for when it all starts linking together. So I thought it was such a tightly woven script. How you have this B story about Laura and all this, but the main story is just like, I'm trying to take care of, Professor, I'm trying to take care of Charles, and I'm trying to just, get by.
Yeah.
And then, so when all the shit starts going down, like when he returns to the hotel and she's dead, they don't quite show how she's dead.
Yeah.
I don't know how Logan knew where her phone was.
Well, didn't he see her check the side drawer thing? Didn't she open it up while he was there?
Oh, okay, yeah. Bam, just figured it out like that. Yeah.
See, movie's got all the answers.
Movie's got all the answers, no flaws. Yeah.
Want to make sure you all understood.
Yeah. But as it was like getting into the more fun, intense sequences, like when they go back, and then they're trying to when Logan gets back, and then Pierce shows up, and he's like tells Caliban to like make sure Professor X keeps quiet. Yeah. I like the little touches just in that scene where Pierce is like, so where are you keeping him? And he just looks at the section where Charles is being held.
The big
he's like, probably in there, right? Yeah, it's like he's not a dumb villain. He's like, yeah, he put two and two together. Yeah, you're probably keeping him in there, aren't you? Yeah. And then when and all the little bonding moments when they find Laura, like when Laura throws the pipe and knocks out Pierce.
Yeah. When she first gets to throw down in that sequence, like that was like a stunner moment. Like,
but I like all the little moments that are. I know our talk is a little all over the place. It's a fucking long ass movie. So, but I just like all the little moments all surrounding that. Like when Logan, when Caliban is talking with Logan and he's like making jabs at him about suicide. You know,
that was a great scene. Like that was a terrific. Because that's the core of this movie is like, what are you gonna do, man? Like you don't want to live anymore. And that's killing you.
Yeah.
That is actively killing you.
And so when Laura shows up, and then Professor X, like, still in crazy old man mode.
Yeah.
You see him, like, he starts to smile. He comes out of the little thing he's held inside, and he's like, this is the one I was telling you about, and stuff. And I like how he becomes the middleman for what will become the strong bond that forms between Logan and Laura. Because, you know, Professor X can just see, like, you guys are, this is just your daughter, you know?
When it wakes up that center of hope in him.
Yeah.
That believes we can find more and we can help these people out.
Exactly. Because Professor X's whole motivation all this time was to help mutants gain freedom and to be okay to live this world.
And to embrace their abilities.
So when his kind is dying out and mutants are gone and then they find this mutant, you know, it's a great touching moment. And like the little touches that they keep building throughout, like when they fight over her backpack, Logan and Laura, when he's trying to get it, but then you know, when Caliban's like, dude, you're starting to see like, okay, Caliban was asked by Wolverine to help out, so when Caliban like drops him off in the desert, but then Pierce just wakes up right away, like that's pretty intense. And even though Logan and Caliban don't really get along, they don't really see eye to eye on things, and you know, there's like it's the little moments in this script that I really do love. Yeah. Because when Pierce shows up with everyone and they all have their guns and shit, Logan doesn't whip out his claws until he goes, you know, where's Caliban? Yeah. And then he says, I left him in the same hole that he was going to put me in. When Logan whips out his claw, he's pissed because he just thinks Caliban got killed.
Yeah,
and you see that, like, oh, that was his friend. You know,
this
like
dude
before
is helping me.
Like you see Logan actually cared about this guy. You know?
I can't show him that, but you know, he's a big significant part of this.
Yeah. But dude, that whole fucking action sequence, man, that was one hell of an action sequence.
Yeah, that was
because.
Stellar.
When they all go inside to get Laura, all the guards, and then you see the main bad dude. And then when she comes out, and it's like she's holding something, but you can't quite make out what it is at first. And then it cuts back to the group, then it cuts back to Laura holding something, and you're like, oh, that's a head. Yeah. She just throws this like head that's still bleeding at the bottom, you know?
Well, that was such a wonderful sequence because like slowly you could kind of tell in different parts of the crowd who was putting it together when. Yeah. Because like some people, like when she first walked out, I was like, what is that? And then the second they cut to another angle and I was like, is it the stump of a head? And I wasn't sure. And then like, you know, slowly people started to figure it out, and then finally like the last waves, like when she actually threw it down, a few people like actually audibly shuddered. Yeah. Like, oh god. Like,
yeah, because it's a disturbing sight to see a little girl carrying a decapitated head that she cut off, but her rage, that rage seems so authentic. Like, it was a scary level of rage from a 12-year-old girl. It was that actress, Daphne Keane, I think is her name, wonderfully performed every second. It's such a silent role, such a body language role. And, man, that was beautiful. But the way that whole sequence plays out, like, all the cool little shots they kept having. I mean, at one point I thought they were kind of stormtrooper shooters. where she's running away and they're all shooting like, how did none of you shoot her at that one point? How did all of you miss that little girl?
Yeah, that's really hard to circumvent.
That's like a little nitpick issue, but I like how, when Laura's fucking them all up, it's still very brutal. You discover she has the claw on her, the toe claws as well, and then when Logan gets in on the action too, and then they're suddenly kind of working together.
Yeah.
That was all very well done. It was so fucking intense and brutal. Because that was one of the cool things about that fight scene. It was more than, oh, this is a cool fight. Like, that was really on edge,
Yeah.
Because you're afraid, like, is Professor X gonna get shot?
The stakes are high, and there's a trade-off of, there's of the upper hand throughout, and then, then seeing them finally come together is like, that's cinema.
Yeah. And, like, when Logan and Professor X are trying to drive away, and then when they get Laura in the car, I like the little moment, because I was like, oh, here's the cliche moment. Hold on!
Yeah.
And they crash, but they don't go through it.
Yeah, right.
It's like nothing's going right for these guys. They just can't get away.
Yeah, that was cool. And then using that, in the whole reverse thing was like,
oh yeah.
That's like Wolverine's thinking on his feet, man. Yeah. Like he's really in the moment right now.
And it could have that fun little Western trope with like the train's coming and then they get past it just in time.
Yeah.
So that way they can get away. That was a really cool touch.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing about all these fights is like every fight seems like it pops up at an appropriate time, both for the story and it gives the characters something. Because even like that first fight is all about that's a crucial moment for Logan and Laura, for that relationship. Because when they have that fight, it's like, okay, I get you now. Like we can do this together,
Totally. And the other thing that, sorry, we just have these notes here that we want to make sure we're going to cover everything we want to talk about here. When the film was done, with the group we were with, someone asked the question, was there anything you didn't like about this movie? And I was only able to come up with one or two specific moments where I was like, this was like a very big nitpicky moment for me. It's not something that made me go, dumb movie, stupid movie. Yeah. It was more like, this just seems a little off. Because when Logan grabs Gabriella's phone, the woman who was watching Laura, and then he's like looking through the footage to see like who the hell is X-23 and all that. The way the footage was put together, because I thought like, okay, this is neat. This is just footage she recorded on her phone secretly. But he was just watching like this one long video that I was like, did she take time to edit this all together in iMovie and throw in a narration over this and move the audio here? And like, it seemed like it was such a well edited documentary to me that I kind of, that was the only time where it slightly pulled me out because I was like, did she take time to like edit this on her laptop and then put it in her phone? Because it was put together way too well for me.
I don't know. I mean, like, I get it. Like, I get why that would be a nitpick for you. I was watching this, though, and, like, when it started, I thought that. But then I thought, like, this woman's on the run. She's got a bunch of, like, crucial proof that somebody might need. And, what else is she going to do with herself? Like, it seems like, maybe she did make a video that kind of shows and explains everything you need so that if you get lost, you've got this, like, you've got proof here. So, like...
That's a fair point.
It is a little bit like, you should get your filmmaking skills. But at the same time, I was like, for this situation... I can kind of see how in 2029 somebody might do that.
Yeah, because there was a lot more footage that was just on her phone, too. It was like, there was sequences of things where I'm like, that wasn't her there, was it? Like when the guy's running up the stairs and they catch the kid who jumps off the rooftop. Yeah. Like, I didn't think that was her.
Yeah, so, and I don't know, but it seemed like, some of this was stuff she shot on her own and some of it was footage she assembled, but, it seemed like, I thought it was used for a good enough purpose that, I could at least make up a reason that I thought was plausible.
Yeah. It's not enough to ruin the film for me by any stretch whatsoever. That was just my one little nitpick flaw that I really was like, kind of hung up on for a second.
Wondering about something different.
But in between all this, they have this really interesting sequence where you just really sympathize for Caliban. Because when Caliban's brought in and... Because they don't tell you right up front what his powers are. It's just like... As dialogue goes on, you pick up on like, oh, he has this ability to sense where mutants are and stuff. Yeah. And they have that sequence where Pierce tortures him with sunlight.
Yeah.
And that was like painful to watch.
Yeah.
Because his skin is just burning the fuck up. And you're like, he's
spare
such a
no
nice
detail.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing, like, I really enjoyed Stephen Merchant in this. Because, like, when he showed up the first time, there were things about this movie that I had to get used to. You know, and he was one of them. Where at first I was like, oh, okay, you know, the quirky, kind of like you said, Vision, like, you know, that kind of side character to bring some color. But the further we got with him, like, he gives a really nuanced, you know, little performance, and, like, he is crucial to the plot after a while. And that scene when they're burning him up in that truck, like,
that's painful to watch.
Nasty, man.
It's a nasty scene, yeah.
It's like those old cartoons where they do, like, that one cut-in slide where it's just, like, totally vivid detail.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and he played it with a very... you know, a very nuanced and sympathetic quality. You know?
Yeah, and you can't blame him for the position he's put in.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like, it looks so painful that I'm like, I get why you said, yeah, I'll help you find them, you know? And I like the way that all plays out as the movie goes. How you like learn that he's probably like he's leading them to where they are, but he's sort of delaying it every single time to try to give them enough time to get away.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he's doing what he can to try to stay alive. Because it's like there's nothing he can do to help them, really, or he'll just die. So like he's put in a tough position.
Here's my opportunity to A, not die, and B, you know, maybe help them out a little bit.
Yeah, help them
if
out.
If I do a shitty job of this because I'm their only hope.
Yeah, exactly. And I like all the little touches this film has as it keeps going. Like they check into that casino hotel, they get new clothes. Like I like just little touches like that. We need new clothes. You know, like they acknowledge like real lifestyle things that have to take place at certain times.
Well, because that's something wonderful about this movie, especially when the three of them are on this trip together. When Charles and Logan and Laura are all on this trip together, like they keep stopping every so often to be like, no. Let's do something people would do.
Yeah.
Because that's what we should do right now. Like we don't have to run at the moment. Like let's get some clothes. Let's sleep. You know, like let's take a shower. Like it's cool.
It's cool how this child brings out this really sympathetic side in Professor X and the hopeful side, because that's all Professor X is built off of. That's why I had the Mutant Academy. Yeah. It was because it was all about children being the hope in the future and everything like that.
Well, that's such a core thing with this movie too. Is like the little what's her name again? Who plays Laura?
I think her name's Daphne.
Daphne
Keene, I think, yeah.
Yeah, she plays that little girl kind of like with that sort of silent fury that you probably would have if you were like raised in a laboratory.
Yeah, totally.
And so having those moments throughout the film are so crucial because that's the one thing she's kind of never been allowed to have in life that everybody, you know, arguably should be. Is like, yeah, let's do something fun. Yeah. Let's get some nice clothes and let's remember why we are alive at all. You know.
I even like the little touches how you never see her sleep in a bed. Every time she's sleeping, she's like in the car or she's on the floor. She'll never go to the bed because she's just not used to that. Yeah. But even like the human moments, like when they're in the hotel, they're all changed and settled in. How they're watching Shane on the TV, like making it very clear the homages they have in this movie. You know? Totally. And that line that I saw an interview with Patrick Stewart where he said like that was a line he improvised, but it was also part of his real life, because he said the film that influenced him to like really want to get into movies was Shane. Aww. So when he says, "I saw this film when I was your age," like some line like that, like that was an improvised line, but that was a representation of his real life that he was using. But that little touch there, and then with Logan with the comic books. Those comic books are not part of an actual comic book. Like, that was all made up for the movie. But at first, when I saw, like, hints of that in the trailer, I thought that was weird. Yeah. Watching it in the movie, it works so well. Because this whole movie is stripping you all from comic book world and throwing you into real world. Like, this is how it might really be. And feeling that, and then even going like, it's because it's kind of even going, those past X-Men movies are all cartoons too. Like this is the real world right now. Yeah.
Well, I thought that was a beautiful way to nod to the comics in this movie. Like I grew to really like that motif because it does, like, it's cool that it does address it And it does take that idea of like, yeah, some of this stuff did happen, but then they threw all this bright and colorful shit on top of it. But it feels like, the document of the last days of Wolverine in a real way.
And it makes you do wonder how it's going to play out in the end, like especially when Logan has that sequence where he realizes the coordinates are just like some bullshit from a comic book.
Yeah. Because
you're thinking like, oh man, like it's not going to turn out well for them in the end. You just think all is going to be lost, and like you don't know if Laura speaks English, so it's like, how do you communicate to her that this is all bullshit what you were told? That Logan wants to tell her that.
Well, and it makes you wonder too, because like that's the cool thing about bringing up that motif is like some of the stuff in the comics is true, so maybe there's a nugget of truth in this. Like the movie does a nice job of playing on the what if of how, like it's a really troubled hope that this movie rides the line on, because every scene kind of has that they could get out of this one, but they could easily not, and it's not gonna be pleasant or fun for anybody.
And as the film progresses, let me make sure the mic's still on because I get paranoid about things like that. So as the film progresses, they have the sequence, of course, one of the most defining scenes of this entire movie that everyone's really raving about, which is the whole seizure sequence.
In the casino.
Which is really intense, because when Logan first shows up, he's noticing some of these guys look like bodyguards. Yeah. We just got a car. Holy shit, this is not... Like, you think, okay, it's all going smooth, but all these people just showed up.
A lot closer than we thought.
It's one of those things where you're like, I want my action scenes, but when danger's lurking, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah. I hope nothing goes down right now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be a problem.
So, that was so intense, because when the seizure sequence starts to happen, it's fucking up everyone, and the only one who can kind of move is Logan, and he's already very fragile in the state he's in.
But you're like, this is hard enough for him on a good day. Yeah. And he's not had many good days lately.
And he's at the bottom of the casino. He's at the bottom floor.
Just pulled up.
Yeah, and he has to like make his way to the elevator, go up the elevator, make his way through the hallway,
climb the hallway.
Yeah. And then and I love that moment where the guy is holding his gun and he just looks over, like just with his eyes
paralyzed in the moment.
Yeah, he can't do anything. That was really cool, because I mean, while we could have had some cool just fuck him up in the hotel action sequence where Wolverine's slashing and dashing, and so is X-23, we had a very unique action set piece where he's slowly driving the claws into primarily their skulls, and it's very brutal, because when you watch the action sequences where it's like, slash, 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 it's like, it's fast. Yeah. But when you see a claw slowly go into someone's skull,
that impact.
Here's
what's really going on.
It's really disturbing, and it's totally effective too. It just adds more to the aura of how like this violent world is not a pleasant, cool action kind of world.
Yeah, violence is a reality in this world, and that's a big part of the struggle in this movie. Is like everything has real repercussions and real world toll.
Totally.
And then over time you start to get why Logan is the way he is.
And that's an interesting it's an interesting way it played out, because even though Professor X hurt a lot of innocent people that time, because he had that seizure and a lot of innocent people in that hotel and just the city, he still kind of helped save them from getting out of that situation.
Well timed.
Because if he didn't have that seizure, like they would have had to deal with all these people with guns, and then all the people were outside, so it allowed them time to escape.
Yeah.
Because they could move and shit,
Well, that's a great character moment for Charles too, because when he's like bringing him through the actual casino and he's seeing like the actual effects on people of what those seizures do, like that's a real moment where he's like, man, I get it now. Yeah, it's humbling, and he plays that really well.
And you have the news reporter commenting on how this is like the same thing that kind of happened in Westchester, which is like its first hint as to maybe it was Professor X who... They never make it clear what happened in Westchester, but the film's alluding to Professor X might have been the one responsible for killing off the X-Men. And there's like films that kind of communicate that in prior installments, if you think about it. Like X2, there's a sequence where Magneto, or it has him like go attack all the humans when he has Cerebro on, and he's like destroying their minds and shit, and he does it to all the mutants as well. And then what's it called? Apocalypse. You know, he shows he communicates to the whole world and sends a message. So he has the power to just kill everyone.
Yeah.
If something were to go wrong.
He's in the wrong place at the right time.
Yeah. And it was from here when the movie becomes more of its road trip kind of movie. Because as the film's playing out, you know, they're on the road, you have more of the family dynamics going on. They have the gas station scene where X-23 does her cool thing where she fucks up gas station attendee a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, but there was the sequence in that road trip whole moments that really stood out was, you know, the part where the horses get loose on the freeway.
Yeah.
And Professor X is all about let's help them out. So X does his mind control thing on the horses. Logan helps push the truck on the road. And I thought as that scene was playing out that it was just going to be just a one-time thing, and they're going to get back on the road. And it was like, okay, there's a little artistic scene in the movie that's resembling hope and light and doing good in times where you're in trouble. You know? But then they get invited to dinner, and now they're at the dinner with his family, the Munson family.
This movie is full of those scenes where like you think they're not gonna, but then they do. Like it's very linear in that way. Cause that moment is great with the horses. That sort of, you know, the more hope, you know, the more Charles is imbued with hope, the more he starts to become kind of his old self again. And that whole little sidebar that transpires is one of the most interesting parts of the movie. You know, because the whole thing with the family kind of unfolds and develops, and you get some really human moments out of that, but you also get some of the film's most tragic moments out of that
totally.
too, you know?
Because that family dinner sequence was great. You see all the fun dynamics of the family they're becoming, especially because you're seeing like the reactions of the Munson family responding to how odd they are. You know, because there's Logan, this 12-year-old girl, this old dude in a wheelchair, and the way they all
strange
and
bunch.
like Professor X, like Charles likes to make fun of Logan. And I like that scene a lot because Logan barely cracks a laugh or smiles in this movie. But at that dinner scene, they're all having a good laugh. Yeah. They're even making fun of each other about the past. And it's this moment where it's like a nostalgia for them and nostalgia for us. And you feel like Logan looks genuinely happy and Charles looks like he's genuinely having a great time. And just even the little touches, like when he decides, because when the water pipe breaks or something and then Logan decides to take Charles to bed, and then how he just kind of shoves down Laura when she gets off. He just pushes her. like he just seems like he's really rough and maybe borderline abusive to this girl. Yeah,
no pleasantries in this family.
He's a rough father,
a grumpy dad.
And that's such a beautiful moment when I think it's Laura who watches Logan carry Charles up the stairs, and there's something that I don't know. I feel like that could be like a good still of the movie, just him walking up the stairs carrying him, or a good poster even. It's just such a good resemblance of like the weight of that Logan is bearing, and all he cares about is just, I want to survive and I want to make sure Charles lives too, you know?
Yeah,
like it's his primary motive.
Two of the X-Men's most important characters in such a fragile state together, relying on each other, you know?
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking.
And the movie has, and that's where some of the Western stuff comes in too, because there is a very sort of straightforward, not like moral code, but it's the same. It's like, you know, they help out with the horses on the freeway, so the family offers them something in return, and they decide to accept it, and there's that sort of back and forth, and it does create some interesting situations off that, and through that, like that was, I didn't realize they were going to go as far as they did with the family. Like, the whole family gets killed, and, you know, like you pointed out earlier, like the kid first, then the wife, and then finally the dad, and it's, you remember why Logan is the way he is. It's like, this is probably the toll every time you try this.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Most of the times that you try this, and that's a hard thing to live with.
Well, before they get killed, I mean, I like how this film, I keep thinking like we're just getting throwaway scenes that aren't really going to connect in the end. You know, like the horses scene was just like, all right, whatever. And then you have, and then the stuff with the family and at dinner, and it's like this family I thought was just a character that would eventually just, you know, go away, and some they would just move on after them.
Nothing's here for no reason.
But even when they go to fix the water pipe, and then those guys show up, you know, the bad sheriff in town, and then Logan's kind of like, you know, the bounty hunter hero who saves the day. Kicks the guy in the nose and then cracks the shotgun in half.
It's like the owner of this big soda conglomerate or something like that, and just his goons who roll out.
Yeah, exactly. So it looks like, all right, we're just getting hints at Logan becoming the hero again, but this isn't all really going to add up to the final result of everything going on.
Yeah.
But when, they have that scene with Charles where he's laying in bed and he's talking about, I had the greatest day of my life today.
Yeah.
Everything's going amazingly. And so when he's sleeping and he's talking about Westchester, how he remembered. Again, they don't specify exactly what happened, but it's alluding to that he probably took out the X-Men,
Yeah.
And I had a feeling that wasn't Hugh Jackman. Like, the way it was shot, they're not showing him, and I'm like, this is kind of weird. They're not showing him. It must be a bad guy. The only reason I was thinking that too, and I was wondering, like, why isn't Charles just reading this guy's mind, whoever this is? But, that makes sense with the way how Charles's powers have kind of been diminished a little bit.
Yeah, he's weaker now.
Yeah, but but in that moment, it's great because he got to have one last day in the sun, and he also came to terms with what happened, what the mistakes, whatever went wrong in Westchester, the mistakes that he made.
Yeah.
But when he dies, I'm glad it wasn't like a brutal death, but it
is a distinct.
Yeah, because it wasn't just like a crazy slash. It was like
painful. Yeah.
Like claw out as his fist is turning, claw goes down. You know.
Just I'm gonna let you see all this, so that there's no trickery.
Yeah.
There's no cutting.
Yeah.
There are no strings or wires. Yeah. I'm really killing this.
Yeah. Yeah, and then like you said, he kills, and killing the family was shocking to me. Not the fact that he killed the family, but how we got to see a decent amount of it, and like starting it off with killing the kid.
Well, it doesn't have that intervening, moral code.
Yeah.
It's like, these people, they helped out, they're honest. They seem like honest people. They don't deserve this, but because of chance, they're in the middle of this situation. They get dispatched pretty nasty. Like you really feel the pain of that. It's bloody and it's upsetting.
Because they're just an innocent family.
Yeah.
It adds to the monstrosity that is X-24 in this moment. And I really like that moment when Hugh Jackman, when Logan arrives at the staircase, and then he sees, himself, but like a younger, healthier version of himself coming down the staircase, and they just X-24 doesn't even attack him. But Logan doesn't attack him either, because Logan just knows, like, I probably will lose if I do something. But Charles is up there, and you see that moment of conflict, like he's taking the little girl. This guy looks like me. She just came down from Charles.
This guy is me, but everything I'm afraid about being.
But when he runs upstairs and he sees, because, man, that was heartbreaking. Like, I'm glad Professor X didn't die right away, because he was like, why, Logan?
Yeah.
But that little subtle touch in such an intense scene when Logan goes, it wasn't me, like telling Professor X that. I'm glad he got to at least let him know that before he died, because that would have been so tragic if he didn't get at least tell him that.
Torn my soul.
And then he dies, and they get into this crazy fight scene with X-24, and
and all the soda goons again.
Those
dudes show up, and then the military dudes show up,
and then with Dr. Rice coming in the picture, and like taking the whole sequence with Caliban getting his moment of redemption,
dude,
where he gets the grenades and just drops it. I hated that they show that in the trailer.
Yeah.
In the trailer, I saw it where they have a moment where Caliban just has a grenade and drops him, and he's in behind a cage. And I'm like,
is he gonna throw him?
In the trailer, I'm like, oh, that guy dies in that moment. I knew it because he just dropped 2 grenades in front of him. So showing that in the trailer was a bummer, because I saw that coming.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's still a great moment,
because
it helps. It does help with the fight that Wolverine is having with X-24. And it's heartbreaking, too, when the father comes in, smashes X-24, and he shoots him, X-24, and he tries to shoot Logan.
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking because they were just bonding,
Yeah.
Logan made a new friend.
Yeah, that's that old thing. I felt like that was another one of those, like, nice little Western touches. It's like...
consequences.
I know I tried to help you out, but you brought this on me. You
my family
took my
and
life
I are
from
dead.
me.
Yeah.
Like, this is where we go from here.
Yeah, it's truly heartbreaking.
Yeah, and that's a real moment out of this movie.
Yeah.
And the same, like, with Caliban, too, I thought they really earned that. Because, again, like, Stephen Merchant, I was really pleasantly surprised by him in this, because he gets to show off, you know, the more, especially the worse things get for him, the more he gets to show his acting range. And, like,
Totally.
Like, it's not, you know, a huge in-your-face performance, but it's got a lot of nuance. And when it
Yeah.
finally comes down to that grenade moment, like, he earns that fucking moment.
This is
like,
a story of protagonists who are constantly deteriorating.
yeah, they're all doing what they can to stay alive and to keep their people breathing more breath, you know, like,
and
trying to play smart.
Yeah. And I like the other little touches where, okay, they bury Professor X. That was heartbreaking, and I even like how Laura tried holding his hand, and he just like refuses. Like Logan's like, "Get away from me!"
Get away from me.
And it's that weird, kind of humorous moment of grief when Logan is smashing up the car, out of a fit of rage, and he passes out. But just the little touches, like how he wakes up in the hospital, and the doctor's fascinated with him, but even just the design of the slashes on his stomach was disturbing to look at. You know?
Yeah, they did not spare any realism in this movie.
That was like, ugh.
This is gross. The toll. Your body's gonna look like a cougar attacked you. Like,
and I like how that went, because it wasn't just one long like montage of them driving on the road. It was a lot of like, I want to drive, let me be in control. He's fighting against it. He has to pass out. So it was a clever way to keep the road trip moving so they can hurry up and get to North Dakota. And, little bonding moments too, little subtle bonding moments, like when Logan's laying on Laura's lap. You know, that's like a nice little touch. Or even before they hit the road, where Logan decides, okay, we'll go to North Dakota. Yeah. That moment where
they have that argument in the car.
Yeah, because Logan is just like, can't hang on anymore.
Trying so hard to keep it together.
Trying to keep his shit together, and she's yelling Spanish words at him.
Yeah.
And he's just losing his shit, yelling at this. Yeah, he's like swearing at this 12-year-old girl, like in her face, and he's in a fit of rage.
We will go!
And there's something crazy to me when I watch like an actor, like a grown man, playing off a 12-year-old girl, and he is being a fucking asshole.
Yeah, right. Like, because it's uncomfortable. It's those moments always force you to be like, well, I get what you're feeling right now, but also that's a child, and I don't know how I would behave in that situation.
And I didn't see that little twist coming when they get to the coordinates, and then it's all the kids who escaped from the lab as well. That was a cool twist, and I like how it wasn't they go there and they're all doing a bunch of powers, you know?
Yeah, it's like they're just hiding out here.
They're just hiding out.
Yeah.
And, even though they had that moment, that cliche, it is one of the rare few kind of cliche moments to me, but it made sense in tune with the character of what he would do. I like how Logan doesn't accept the money, and he just tells him to keep it because they need it. Yeah. He goes through all this trouble, and all started for money, and that's part of Logan's character. He just goes, but even the little touch when they shave his facial hair off.
Make him look like in the comics. Look like their hero, Wolverine.
But I like how they approach doing that.
Yeah, totally. There's a lot, like, even the stuff that is like, fan appreciation is
handled really well.
Yeah, is woven in very nicely and in a way that connects to the rest of the movie.
True.
Nothing in this movie feels like it's just thrown in, I don't think.
And the cliche moment I'm talking about is when, Logan... But the way it was handled didn't feel cliche. I feel like in terms of plot structure, it's cliche. But the way the scene was done so well and effective when he tells Laura he's not going to go with her. Yeah. It was just supposed to be a week. I'm like, that's how he'd react. And he had good justification, which is like, do you not see what happens to the people I care about? Yeah. Like, he didn't tell her, I care about you, I love you. But that was his way of saying that. It was like, if I'm around, you will die.
Yeah. This is a bad, for your own good.
Like that pushing away and anger.
Go on, get.
But dude, that finale.
Yeah.
That finale was like, we thought we got some cool action sequences before, but that was the only moment where we got like, this is vintage Wolverine now because he's able to
jacked
do
up.
shit. Yeah. Because when the kids are running through the woods and you're seeing teases of the kids' powers.
Yeah.
I like how they showed us powers that we've seen in other X-Men films, but they showed us the violent versions of those powers too.
Yeah, and then it's also kind of a fun connect the dots because you're like, okay, whose DNA did they swipe to make you? You know, are you related to Iceman in some way?
Because like there was like a T-1000 moment in a way, or like when the girl freezes that guy's arm and smashes it.
Yeah, like
that's brutal.
These are resourceful kids who have been pushed into a corner. You know?
Yeah, totally.
So like they attack. Like that's the cool thing too is like when X-23 attacks, like she's like a baby snake. It's just like like you know, it's just pure unadulterated. Like I must survive.
Yeah.
And like that's intense, man. Like it's really, really intense and vivid the way they capture it here. Like,
but when Logan's running through the woods. And then, you know, they do hint at early, like, you know, he's going to eventually take the bottle when the kid leaves him the bottle of the blue juice, whatever.
Yeah.
When he takes it and injects him, and then they later cut to the shot where he's sprinting like Tom Cruise through the woods.
The guy finds the empty bottle, and they're like, "Oh no!"
As much as I do like trailer reactions and stuff, I don't mind being vocal, like in a room with a friend or two or something. But in the theater, I'm a rather quiet moviegoer.
Yeah.
In the actual movie theater, I'm like, this is a place where we all want to watch the movie. Let's not make too much noise, you know.
Yeah.
If we're laughing, or oh, that happens. But in that moment, I had to cheer, and I rarely ever like go woo or like an action. But I got so excited that he was like in jacked up mode.
He's gonna do
Yeah, and then when he's going through the wood, and like, cause I think of like X2 or even X-Men 3 or X-Men Apocalypse, all those great scenes where he's running through people and slashing them up. And in this one, we gotta have a jacked up Wolverine, and they have that one long shot where he's just slashing up people, dives into someone, and it's fucking brutal, dude.
Yeah, like, he just moves like an animal.
Yeah.
This is the most animally one perhaps possible.
It's part of his strength is his rage.
Yeah.
And it's cool when you see like rageful Laura and rageful Logan working together, you know? Like a cool father-daughter duo.
He's got a purpose, man.
Yeah.
And he's gonna see it through to the end.
And I even like, because they hint at earlier when Logan says, I don't like guns. And then when the stuff is wearing off and he's confronted with Dr. Rice, and he's kind of revealing that he was responsible in a way for the mutants dying off too.
Yeah.
How Logan swoops out a gun and shoots him in the throat. Like, he's like, he's dying. He's got nothing left in him, but it's like, fuck it, you gotta die. And he just shoots the guy in the throat. Then they get into the battle with X-24.
Oh,
that was scary, because I'm like, I don't know how they're going to take out X-24.
He just shot that guy.
Yeah, remember? Yeah, he just shot him in the throat. Wasn't a cool stab. It's like, fuck you.
Yeah.
I don't care to make you have some meaningful death. You're going to die.
Yeah.
And
it's like Indiana Jones on my
Yeah. And with because a lot of this movie seems like it's leading up to Wolverine's going to kill Pierce.
Yeah.
But he doesn't. I like that the kids got to do it. Because Pierce was the guy who was fucking shoving them around in the lab all the time. You know, he was the dick in charge of making sure to keep these kids in line.
Yeah.
So it was the kids who deserved to kill Pierce. And the way he died was nasty, because it was all their powers in once working together.
We're gonna
blowing him up and
electrocute you and mold you into the ground.
Yeah, it's every power.
Break your cool metal arm.
But when Logan's getting fucked up, man, that was I was hoping like, okay, there's gonna be some way he gets out of it, and I wasn't expecting the adamantium bullet, but when that happens, you know, his skull gets blown off, and it did. This is again going with the X-Men universe with continuity problems a little bit here, because Logan in Origins gets shot with a massive magnum in the head with an adamantium bullet, but it just stops. Remember?
Really? I don't remember much.
That's how he loses his memory. Because he gets shot in the head and the bullet goes in there.
So it's like you get one.
But then in this one, he gets shot, X-24, skull falls apart.
Because X-24 is not special.
Yeah, he's not
Wolverine.
special.
He's not the Wolverine, okay?
And then we had to have the hero's death. Hero's death, where Wolverine is, you know, stuck with the thing, this tree branch or whatever, peeking out of him.
Sorry, I'm still back on X-Men Origins. They really did that?
Yeah, X-Men Origins. Remember that Stryker shoots him, and then he loses his memory after that.
Yeah, I'm glad he didn't. What did he shoot him like in the middle?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, well.
Yeah, right.
But that in this movie I thought was a cool motif. Like that was one of those things.
It was
where
cool.
Like,
I
I
clapped
know
at
this
everyone
is
else
gonna
when it
come
happened.
back, but I was like, they didn't make it. They didn't try to make it like an insignificant detail. It's just like they kept acknowledging that adamantium bullet, and I was like, that's gonna come back, and I'm not entirely sure how. And I hope it gets used for something, and it does, which is nice.
And I thought it was clever to. I thought it was okay to use that. You know, if X-24 was just a regular mutant, and then they kill him off with a gun, that would suck.
Yeah.
But the X-24 is a lab experiment. He's not an authentic mutant, you know. So
he's a killing machine.
He's just a killing machine. So I'm like, yeah, if it takes a gun to take him out, fucking do it, because he's just a killing machine. And but that moment when Laura's crying and Logan's dying, she calls him daddy, you know, and he tells her like, don't be what they wanted you to be, or something like that.
Don't be what they made you.
Don't be what they made you. Yeah. I got a little. I'll admit, I was crying about some other stuff earlier that day, so I wasn't like full of tears at that moment. I definitely felt it.
That ending moment.
But I heard,
cry for real.
I heard everyone around me crying. Everyone around me was sniffles. Like everyone was very audible. I hear our buddy Andrew crying. I hear John. I look over. It's the first time in like a decade I see John with tears down his face. Yeah. John was really
like, full. Not even just like one or two. Just like it was flowing. Down. It was a flow.
But they still kept it like you know, they don't like necessarily set it up for like the next adventure. Like I would like it if X-23 like. I'd love it if they used the same actress, but like did a film like 5 to 7 years from now.
Yeah. Oh my god,
that would be same cool. Actor, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like a Leon the Professional ending for me in a way.
Yeah.
You know, where it's a little girl and a guy, the father in a way. I mean, Leon's not a father in that movie, but it's a little girl.
Kinda.
And then, you know, Leon dies. She plants something in the ground for him. And then, you know, we never got the Natalie Portman movie. I thought it'd be cool to get like the X-23 movie.
Crossover. Natalie Portman. Matilda and X-23 in there, perfect.
But even the cool, clever touch with, you know, she recites the Shane speech. When he dies, you know, this movie's just a big tribute to Shane, and then the kids are like, all right, let's go, you know, like because that's still in tune with what's going on with these characters.
Yeah.
Like, all right, we did our thing. We gotta get out of here now. You know.
Well, and that's another one of those Western things. Is like, you know, it's
keep moving.
Yeah, it's like we're gonna give you a nice burial just in this random place that we're at because this is where it happened and this is where it's most convenient. Now we gotta move on.
Yeah.
You know?
But even honoring that with turning the T, the cross, turning it down and making it an X. Yeah, that's even like symbolism a little bit for Charles and a little bit just the whole X-Men world. Totally.
It was the perfect blend of cheeky but also touching. You know?
Oh, and in the death too, he had that very powerful moment where he says, "So this is what it feels like."
Yeah. Oh.
You know that was the part of where I definitely got a little misty.
That touched my soul juice right there, like
because that could be meaningful with so many things. To me, in that moment, I'm thinking about how Professor X this whole time has been saying like, you know what it's like to have a family, you know what it's like to love and have a daughter and all those things, and I felt like in that moment he was really feeling like the love he has for Laura, you know. And the sacrifice he's made for her because he loves her.
Well, and also just peace, you know, like I get the sense like,
and also feeling mortality.
He's dying, but he's also feeling a bunch of new things, you know, and that's got to be to have him go out on such a profound moment with a little look of joy almost on his face or euphoria. It was a beautiful touch, you know. Finally, this man can rest.
Finally, and. That post-credit scene.
Yeah.
I mean, that only played in like half of the theaters apparently.
Yeah. It's weird. I don't know why they chose to do that.
Yeah, like some screenings showed, like as I know at Origins they had like some screenings had this post-credit scene, some had this post-credit. Some screenings didn't even have a post-credits thing. But the post-credits thing here, where like Wolverine's hand pops out of the grave.
Yeah.
That's not real.
No. The actual post-credits thing we saw was basically they roll him in. It's back in that place, the menagerie that Benicio del Toro is in from Guardians of the Galaxy. And they have his like exhumed corpse in like, you know, just suspended in the dirt that he was buried in, and they put it in the museum. And I'm like, why are they gonna do that? Why are they gonna keep Logan's skeleton on
crossover
display?
Finally happening?
Yeah, you know, like they're gonna bring him back, you know, like 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, no, there was no post-credits thing. But when it happened, we all stuck around in case there was one.
There was actually a post-credit scene where they said this movie created 120,000 jobs, and someone was like, "Boo!"
Yeah. Someone out there went boo, like was pissed.
Yeah, I was like,
and I was like, I'm really happy there isn't a post-credit scene.
I'm glad about that.
I'm glad we got a complete film.
It's done.
Yeah, it's done.
The ending was the ending, and let's be in awe of that ending.
And I would have hated any possible hint that Logan might still be alive. I would have hated anything. Yeah, dirt ball rising from the ground or something. Yeah.
Just kidding!
Yeah, I would have hated that.
Yeah.
So I'm glad this is the perfect way to go out.
Hell yeah.
It's crazy because it's like, holy shit, they really found the perfect way to end Wolverine.
Yeah, it seems like they got to really put their passion. It felt like a passion project. It felt like it had tons of heart and soul, and it felt like it got to be what it wanted to be. It felt like everybody got to give their all to it. Like, everybody in this movie shows up. The designs are great, the pace is great, the look and the feel, the style. Like, again, I said this in the other review, I think, but it's like, it really feels like a distinct movie, and I'm, like, impressed by everybody involved. Like, props to James Mangold, because this is the kind of superhero movie that to me is kind of like The Dark Knight, where I'm like, this is just a film, you know, like, this is a film. You've elevated the genre, you know, to something even cooler, and you're helping to broaden it out. So
You gave us the best Wolverine movie.
Yeah, you did honor by a character.
And then it's not like an official X-Men movie. It's the best one out of the X-Men universe.
Yeah. This was... I was completely pulled into this, and it surprised me, and it made me worry about all kinds of things. Like, nothing was ever a given in this movie, and everybody does a terrific job with their part, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You know, what's crazy is Hugh Jackman, he's the one who pitched this to Fox.
Is he really?
Yeah, he's like, I have this idea. And he pitched the concept. He got some writers, and he's the one who told Fox, like, we could dial down the budget and all these other things. And he took a pay cut to make this R-rated.
That's beautiful.
You know, like, this was a passion project, especially for Hugh Jackman, too.
Yeah.
It's so awesome to get an actor who wasn't, like, so many movies in and be like, I'm so sick of this role.
Yeah. It seems like every time he shows up for Wolverine, he shows up.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Seems like he just
I
likes to do this.
I hope he can get bigger roles after this.
Yeah.
But I feel like this sets it up in a way for Hugh Jackman, because one thing that aids in that is he doesn't have, like, the Wolverine hair.
Yeah.
Because I remember thinking that early in the movie, when he didn't have the Wolverine hair, it, like, finally stood out to me, and I was like, we're just watching Hugh Jackman right now.
Yeah. Just a guy with a beard.
Yeah. It was like the Wolverine, not having the Wolverine hair, it allowed us to see it differently. And it's a full-blown character spectrum here. This is the best comic book performance I've ever seen.
I think so, yeah.
I think it's the best, like, in terms of, like, heroes.
Yeah.
You know, villains is different. Heath Ledger's the Joker, you know.
Well, yeah. I mean, this movie is all its own, and I was so thrilled when I saw it. You know?
And a great send-off for Professor X.
Great send-off for Professor X. Great send-off for Hugh Jackman.
Great send-off for Stephen Merchant.
Great send-off for Stephen. Hey, you know, he's only in this one, but hey, he left an impression on me, man.
And X-23, I know James Mangold wants to do a movie of her. I'm hoping that they wait a while, though.
Yeah.
I don't want to just, like, try to ride the Logan wave, you know?
Go do something else. Take a break.
Yeah, totally.
Like, I do believe that's if anything can always be taken as advice from, like, the Christopher Nolan school. It's like, yeah, go do something else for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then come back.
All right, guys. Well, that's our spoiler talk. Thank you to everyone who stuck around this long.
Thank you.
If you're new to the channel, subscribe to The Real Rejects. John's Reasons to Jerry on Twitter and Instagram. Social media manager at Blumhouse and The Real Rejects. And shout out to Ian McKellen.
Yeah. Where you been, man?
He was supposed to be in this.
Charles.
Yeah. He was supposed to save the day at the end.
Yeah, he swoops in with
He's supposed to swoop
Mystique.
in and take the claws out of X-24. Yeah, swoops in with Mystique. Yeah.
in the old airplane thing.
Yeah. That's what it was done.